Good morning, everyone. We're here for the Stockbridge Bowl Stewardship Commission meeting on Friday, August 20th. So first on our agenda is to accept the minutes from 8:06:21. Any corrections, changes from the group?
Oh, here he is.
Captain Nathan.
So moved.
Okay, second, a motion to accept. We have first, second.
I'll second.
Roxanne, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks. And Tammy will do the 7:16 minutes and we'll have those for our next meeting on September 3rd. So A, harvesting update and progress. Roxanne, do you want to take that over?
Sure. So they've been harvesting the lake, according to the NOI, since last Friday. So things are going quite well, with the exception of we apparently have a minor mechanical problem. There's actually a slight leak that I can tell you right now in this meeting. I saw Hugh this morning and they were going up to Main Street, and then the very first thing after Main Street was to go to the lake and address that issue again.
Yeah, we don't want to take it out until it's fixed.
Right.
Hydraulic.
So
Yeah, could be, I'm not sure.
it was a hydraulic
Hydraulic,
line,
yeah.
according to him. So,
Right.
yep, so we won't go anywhere with it unless they let us know. And I said he could text me and also you.
Yeah.
To give us, the status update. And if it's all okay, and you're okay with the weather, you'll be out later, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. So all seems to be going well. We really thank Chuck Core also for being a member of this team, and he's been harvesting as well. And he reported to me one day that he feels like a great hero because he's going down the channel and he has people waving and clapping. So people are really happy that it's actually going on.
The liberators.
I know.
Anyone have anything to add?
Well, I just want to say I'm glad it's out. I'm glad the harvester is out. I think we should look at this year when we finish it and see how much area was actually done with the within the scope of where we were allowed to go. It's not easy to look at the GPS and follow it exactly. And we have to look at that also visually and where it should go on the machine. But these are all things internal that we can discuss with the highway department. But just giving you a fill in, as this board is important to know all things that are going on the lake. But it's really helped a lot, especially around the island and down the outlet. It's made a huge difference. And for that, we're all grateful.
Right. Well, the GPS unit, just so everybody knows, it is tracking and it does collect that data. And so we can download that. We now have, a memory card, memory chip we can put in. We can download that and generate
Is that a real
reports from it.
expensive unit?
Pardon me?
Is that a really expensive unit?
It's not super expensive.
You gotta maybe get a second one.
Well, we were talking about,
I mean, I can have the SBA get it possibly.
Why would we need a second one? At this point, we're allowed to harvest so little that I don't know that we need to put
Okay,
two
well,
harvesters on the lake. We have the other one as a backup. So if something should really fail on the one that we've been using, which is the smaller one, then we can always put the larger one
Okay.
out on the lake.
Okay,
And we can transport this from one to the other.
okay, good.
So it's portable.
Great. Well, thank you, guys. Boat ramp and zebra mussel station updates. Anything?
There's no particular updates. We're going to be open at the Zebra Mussel Washing Station through October 11th, which is Columbus Day. And we're hoping that we can keep at least one porta potty there at the boat ramp through that time.
Okay.
Other than that, things are going on as normal.
Oh, wonderful. Any questions for?
Yes, I have a question, Jamie. Jerry, you were gonna be doing a little research about whether or not there was a state template for how to modify the approach to the ramp, the parking lot and all that other kind of stuff. Did you get any and make any progress on that?
No, I think what we need to do is have the engineer go down there And I don't think they have a template. I think what they do is they have to approve the engineering study.
So is that just your guess, or did you actually figure that out?
No, that's pretty much what Doug Cameron said.
Oh, he told you that?
Yeah, at the meeting, when we had the meeting, he pretty much said, have an engineering study done, present it to us, and then we'll go from there.
All right, thanks.
Right, and what we talked about, Charlie, was basically kind of an overall drainage engineering plan. I mean, we need the entire area because the entire thing is feeding and creating, you know, the erosion and the problems on the boat ramp. So it'll be a relatively large project, and Mike Canales was reaching out to Doug Cameron.
Any other questions, Charlie?
No, but I think that should set as, I think in general, we're going to have to be looking at all of the drainage projects and stuff in the future and making sure that we're doing the best job we can to make sure that they do not provide any kind of increased temperature or runoff into the lake. I think this is going to be a good first step to have that done well.
A good point.
Mike is working on that. Canellis, the town manager.
I said, have you heard yet from Doug Cameron? Because Doug had indicated he would get in touch. We haven't heard from him.
Okay.
So I said, you need to reach out to him and,
Good.
have a conversation.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Gary? No, seeing none. So C, town beach updates. I did invite Steve Knopf, and he's on the, no?
No, he's not here.
I'm here.
He's here.
Oh, he is here.
Good morning, Steve.
Good morning.
Welcome to our meeting, and would you like to give us any updates for Parks and Rec and in the town beach and the driveway? And it doesn't have to be, technical.
Sure. Doesn't seem like my video is working though. Do you see me?
No, we see a gray screen, but that's okay.
That's okay. Your camera's off.
But we can hear you well.
Thank you. Yeah, my camera's on. I just don't know why it's not showing my face. Sure, I can give a brief update on where we are with the beach. So we have a plan to improve the parking lot. It's what we've created a multi-phase plan, and we wanted to start with the parking lot before we started with the swimming area. And what we hired an engineering firm to draw up some plans, and what we plan to do is have sort of 2 tiers of parking with drainage in between the tiers. We're going to add a handicap parking area, and most importantly, a separate entrance and exit, and level out the driveway so it's not so steep while you're trying to pull in and pull out. And that plan was funded through a special article on the town warrant a couple of years ago. We, based on the estimates, we thought we could use town labor and equipment and materials. Right now, we're just waiting for the go-ahead for someone to begin that project and manage the project. So it's basically on hold until we get the go-ahead to do it. I believe there's some permitting that has to be done as well. And unfortunately, I don't have a status on where that all stands. So I have to probably get with Mike Canales and see where these improvements fit into the town's plans over the next, if we can do it over the winter or fall while the beach is closed, that would be great. The 2 biggest complaints we get really from the residents are the geese and the weeds in the water. So we have removed the goose fence, which was completely ineffective, and basically resorted to having to clean up the beach daily, but due to staffing shortages, we're just not able to get to it. So there are days where the geese get onto the beach and it's very messy. It's really quite embarrassing for our town to have such a poor, sanitary situation at the beach, but that's what it is. And then of course the weeds have really grown into the swimming area. So that also is something we hear quite a bit about. Not sure how we're going to address that. I don't know if the Harvester GPS plan plans to go over there, but we currently have ropes up as a boundary for the swimming area. So it may not be able to navigate into the swimming area to actually get them. So
Want to go in the swimming area?
We're allowed to go.
I don't know. We have to look at the map.
Yeah, the map.
It's about half.
Do you have questions for Steve?
Yeah, Steve, I have a question and a comment. So basically, the plan for the town right now with the parking area is that we would have highway begin on that once the summer season is over. So that's anticipated to start happening this fall. I can talk to Mike Canales about any possible permitting that we need to do. And a comment about the geese. I mean, I've gone down there and checked a few times because it came up in a select board meeting. And the first time I went, it was absolutely clean. The second time, there was some goose poop, but it wasn't bad. And the dilemma, like you said, is that we couldn't hire enough people for this summer. So we have 3 days where nobody's there. So obviously,
right.
there's no one there to clean it up. But hopefully next summer, we're going to return to somewhat of a normal attitude about cleaning it up. The weeds in the swimming area, we have to check the depth on our map, map for our order of conditions, and see if we can go in that shallow. Do you happen to know what the depth is at the far end of this?
7 feet maybe, about it. It's not deep.
It's not deep? Okay. So we can take a look at that, and if we're allowed to harvest there, then I'm assuming that we can figure out a way to get in there. It might mean having to move the ropes, right?
Part of the beach is in the protected area that goes in front of Beechwood.
Oh,
Just a portion of it.
No,
it does.
No?
it's not.
It
It's
does.
not. The issue is really the ropes.
Close, though.
I
Yeah,
went
it's
in
the
front of the ropes. Steve, how are you, first of all?
Good, Michael. Thanks.
Good to hear you.
Thanks.
I went in front of the ropes, the area, and the way the map is, I can't really see the GPS well enough to see it, so I went by the map. It's not a one pass there. It's pretty much an area that we can go, but we can't get in any closer than the ropes is part of the issue. If you want next week, coordinate a day to take the ropes, at least the outside rope, the deepest part of the lake rope. I could come in and give you some relief there. If the map, I just want to look at the map to be positive, but pretty sure it's pretty,
It's right underneath.
I mean, it's not exact, the map, to a point.
Right,
You
well,
know?
once I'll blow the map up.
Yeah.
And because they're working off of a laminated, 8.5 by 11, so I'm gonna double that size at least.
I'll
And then
move
we
the
can
markers if
see,
it's okay with
but
them.
then when we make that map bigger, we'll be able to see what the depth lines are.
I didn't know it worked on the depth. Because I saw it was like you can't get in some areas closer than 5 feet to the shoreline.
5
It
foot
says,
depth.
no, I think it says
Oh,
5
I
feet.
think
5 feet
Michael's
depth
right.
or 5 feet
I thought it was 5 feet from the shore. like-
from the shore.
Yeah, like.
Yeah, I'm not positive. Let's look at the map,
We'll have
but
to
we're all
look.
When
guessing.
you're harvesting in the small harvester, the depth of the harvesting is 5 feet.
The depth is 5 feet.
Yes, so you don't want to go in to 5 feet of water. You want to be in 6 feet of water.
All right, well, I don't know what the depth is, but
Because that's how
Steve,
deep the cutting bar
That's
is.
like where the cutting board is, yeah.
oh, no, the cutting bar can be any depth. The cutting bar has nothing to do with how deep it is. The cutting bar goes down to whatever depth you have to cut. You can go from half a foot down to.
Maximum of 5 feet.
Yeah, so you
according
don't
to the
go,
specs.
yeah, you don't
Yeah.
go that deep if the shore doesn't allow it or the floor doesn't allow it, because you don't want it to get stuck in the.
Right.
So that's adjustable. The issue is the legality of, I just want to look at the map and see what.
Okay.
Hey,
Yeah,
if it's okay with them, I'll move the markers the day you're doing it.
speak to the boss.
Steve, it's Gary Kleinerman. I will move the markers if it's okay with you the day he's going to do the harvesting.
That would be great, Gary. Thank you.
It will.
All right.
Any other questions for Steve?
Yeah, so I believe the parking lot work is supposed to start this fall, but I just need to confirm that so we can notify the town on the website, and because I'm going to assume that people who have boats stored there won't be able to access them, so we'll have to have them removed back in.
I have one other question, and that is the design that was done by the designer. I remember seeing it in one of your meetings, and I'm wondering, has that been provided to Town Hall? So, because we could post that plan on the town website.
I don't know if well, Michael and Hugh both should have the high resolution plans in a electronic format.
Okay.
I can resend it just in case they can't. It is a rather large file, and you might have had an issue with the size of the attachment on email, but let me try to resend it to them and see if we can't post it on the website.
Okay, yeah, I think that would be helpful for people that are interested in what's going to happen, what the design is, because it really did show it quite well, at least in one of the diagrams that you shared in that meeting.
Great. Okay. Great suggestion.
Here, hold on, Steve, hold on 1 second. Don't go away.
Yep.
You got it.
Yeah, this is the area from the Stockbridge Town Beach.
Right.
So I don't know what it means, how far that is, but the other part, I just want to show you quickly, is 5 feet from the shore here. It says, hold on, Steve.
Sure.
Anita, did you have a question?
It goes somewhere.
Yes, should I wait till Michael's finished?
No, you could talk.
Go
You
ahead,
could talk.
Anita.
It says something over here.
Thanks, Michael. Good morning. Thank
Minimum
you.
of 5 distance from shoreline.
Well, I had a few questions for Steve, if that's okay, about the beach. One is, will the
That means
floating
you-
docks be replaced?
What does that mean? How close you think?
Do you know?
Yes, we purchased new docks last year, but we decided for COVID reasons, not to put them out there. And then at the end of the prior year, they got the seagulls decided to sit on there and make quite a mess. So this year, because of lifeguard shortages, we weren't able to put them out. But as soon as we're able to fully staff our lifeguards, and we're even considering a beach manager position as well, to coordinate a lot of different things, we will get the docks out there. We also need to put, because it's in shallower water, we're required to put no diving signs. We used to have no diving signs at the beach. They were attached to the fence, but we are instead need to get signs that we can attach to the floating docks, which we'll ensure we put on before we put them out there. So the plan is to put them back out next summer.
Depth at the end.
That's great. My grandchildren will be
Distance, the way the map is, how far from the shore.
And your second question, Anita?
happy. Will the swimming area be larger than in the future? Is it seems very small this year. Is it because of lack of lifeguards or COVID?
Great question. We get a lot of questions about that. So the main two reasons we put the ropes out is, one, we don't want to create a large area for the lifeguards to have to monitor. And number two, it's a designated no boats inside the swimming area. So even though we have kayaks stored at the beach, right now there's no easy way for them to get in and out of the water. So we try to create a little room for them to navigate around the swimmers when they're coming in and going out on the water. And also, we do not have the docks out. Normally we put the docks out at a further depth, and we put the ropes around them. So we don't really have a set measurement for putting the ropes out, but we'll make a note to maybe make it a little bit larger next year.
That would be great. And the other has to do with the kayaks. Like when you make an area to put them in and out, will there also be more of an area for those of us who kayak over to the beach to pull them up and secure our kayaks while we're swimming at the beach.
Oh, I haven't heard previous requests for that, but
Stick around.
yeah. So you kayak over from your house or from the boat ramp? Is that the idea? And then
From the house, yes.
yeah,
And then usually we're able to pull them up on the beach, but, and maybe it was from all the rain, there wasn't much of an area to pull them up onto the sand.
right. So we're currently working on engineering plans to redo the entire swimming area. So
Great.
we will take that into consideration as well.
Thank you. I appreciate that. The last thing, what you brought up about the geese, I just wanted to mention to whoever it concerns that there is quite a bunch of goose droppings on the dock at the island. And the concern is that it not be cleaned up into the lake. Is there a plan? And Charlie, maybe you're in charge of goose droppings. Is there a way to clean them up without them going into the lake?
Really? That's what a pick.
Because when it rains, doesn't it just wash in?
It washes in.
Universal problem everybody has.
Yeah.
Just curious. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anita.
Anita.
Yes, Michael. Thank you for driving the harvester. by the way.
Oh, you're more than welcome, really. I think you bring up a wonderful, bigger concept of inviting people, not just that are going on the beach, because you want to draw as much attention to the beach. The more attention we draw to the beach, the more it's going to get funding and whatever it is. And I think you bring a wonderful concept, because my kids also, they paddle to the beach. And if you had a place where you can park your kayaks, or you can comfortably, I think that's a great idea for Parks and Recreation to keep in mind when they do the beach area, that there should be an area for people coming in visiting. So Steve, I don't know if you're still there.
Yeah.
All right, just, I think Anita brings up a very good idea for making it even just for swimmers per se. Yeah,
Thank you, Michael.
yeah.
I'd like to, can I say?
Go ahead.
Yeah, Steve, this is Gary Kleinerman again. I have two sections of dock that are in your house there, down in the basement, that could possibly be used for boarding, kayak boarding docks, maybe at the north end of the beach that's not being used right now. It's, it's overgrown with grass.
Right.
So you may want to consider that. They're available, and it could be put to a good use.
Okay. Thank you for that. All great suggestions for sure.
Yeah.
And Roxanne has a comment?
Yeah, I have another idea about this, in that where you have the kayak racks now, is there any possibility of going in front of the Conservation Commission and seeing if you could create an area over in that vicinity that is specifically for kayaks and canoes?
Oh, that's a good
So
idea.
you totally segregate it away from the swimming area.
Yeah.
I think that's going to certainly require, the permission of the Conservation Commission and a discussion.
Right. So we've had the entire property surveyed, and there are some protected areas over there, but that is the plan, is to have a completely separate area for the boats. The other plan is actually to completely remove the kayaks from the beach, which I know would be highly controversial, but it is very difficult, almost unmanageable right now, because people see the boats being stored at the beach. They think they can bring outside boats in. No one's there to inspect for zebra mussels. And the beach ends up cluttered with all these out-of-town boats sitting in the grass or going in the water. We may create a fencing area from the parking lot that only allows humans in and no other boats, and require all boats to be launched at the boat ramp. That is not a decision right now, but it is something we're seriously considering, because really the beach is for swimmers, and it's not really meant to be a boating area, and takes a lot of time and effort to manage those kayak racks. people don't use them properly. They store them upside down so they get full of rain and the racks start falling over. There's just a lot of issues with
Those are things that could be worked on.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments for Steve?
Yes, can I say something? I know Anita brought up a point about the goose droppings. And I know that Steve Knopp sent around an email with some, that contained within it, as far as I remember, Steve, you can correct me about this, some pretty good discussion of what possible things you could do about the geese. And, just to so everybody understands, obviously there's the aesthetic idea about the geese, and then there's also the health issue. The health issue doesn't come from necessarily the geese spreading a lot of disease, but if E. coli is present in the water from the geese droppings, then the Board of Health has to close, the board tests this regularly, the board has to close the beach down until the E. coli level drops, because the board can't tell whether the E. coli is of human septic origin or coming from the geese. So it becomes a problematic point from that point of view. But I think Steve has pretty good set of information there. Isn't that correct, Steve, about the different possible ways of handling the geese? And so far, it's been unsuccessful. Is that right?
That's correct. And I think I was responding, it might have been from Patrick White, or someone had pointed us to, it might have, one of the government websites that had geese deterrent sort of do's and don'ts. But yeah, we've been living with the geese, trying to control them for many years. And yes, I believe a combination of fencing and better vegetation down by the water probably is the best solution. But again, that section of the beach that people sit in and swim in is a future phase. We're currently working with engineering firms to get plans for that, and geese control is part of what we're trying to do with these new plans. So but yes, for sure the best thing that we can do is make sure we're staffed adequately to clean it up each morning so it doesn't run into the water when it rains and people don't have to sit around it. There are days where they don't come for whatever reason, but they probably go to different parts of the lake. But yes, I did send that email, and I would welcome additional suggestions or comments about how we could address it.
Anyone else? Thank you so much, Steve, for giving us an update and information and getting up early.
You're welcome. I'm sorry my video's not working. I have no idea why. I've never had this problem before. So
That's
I know it seems like there's a lot of interest in the beach, so we should probably have this on your agenda, every couple of months or so.
okay, it's a good idea.
Yeah.
So any updates with dredging or Michael, or Gary?
Well, actually, you have Roxanne here, who's our town dredging guru. Yeah. So, I mean, in general, I don't know if we discussed it. We had the last meeting, I think we discussed that we had gotten new quotes, basically. I mean, very loose. And we were talking, and it seemed like it looked like a $4 to $4.5 million project, and correct me. But what we wanted to do, and hopefully it'll be done, was now to get a better accounting of the work being done. Not so much financially we didn't discuss, but accounting of the work being done on a monthly level, on a monthly report from GZA. And
That'll be helpful.
yeah, in other words, GZA really needs now, we gave them permission to start doing the permitting for this project. But one of the things that we also have to do, I was hoping maybe Michael Canales could help us, although I mean, it is a huge project and it's very important for the town and for whatever, but that we're on top of GZA more to make sure that they give us a monthly report on the progress. In the past, it was very sporadic on both our parts, the town's part and on their part. And unless we pushed them, they wouldn't get back to us. And maybe because it's taken such a long time, they never saw the urgency of getting back to us. But I think now we're getting into that phase, and Roxanne was pushing for a monthly review from GZA. Is that not true?
Yeah, and from the town's perspective,
Yeah.
Michael Canales is going to be checking in with Jenny Merrill, and she apparently has the huge history of contracts and amendments about this. So we want to go through that with, and be very clear on what we can and cannot ask them to do, et cetera. As
Right,
related to
well,
costs.
yeah.
So that's where we stand with that. But I think we've made it pretty clear, and I think Greg Wellenkamp did a great job in terms of kind of moving them into action. So I think, the tag team here, the three people of just really insisting that they get back to us in a more timely fashion has started to work. We seem to get a little more responsiveness, so.
And Roxanne or Michael, would this monthly report come to the town, to SBA, to?
Well, I think the monthly report is more biblical in reality. It's like the earth was created in 7 days type of thing. The monthly report, I'm scared to tell you, might be a 3 months report or a 2 month. But I understand, but I'm
Or it
just
could
saying.
be as
that I leave to-
informal as Michael Canales as town administrator,
Right.
making sure he's touching base with them on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And we
So
continue
town.
to push for results
Okay.
and timely response.
Yeah, there's so many regulatory things they have to do in order to make this a reality. And we want to make sure that they're starting these regulatory permissions from all the different government agencies that we're not. And so we know, and I would like to see an outline from them of all the regulatory that they have to do and what they think is their timeline for doing it. Because
It's
if we
important.
want to raise more money, or if we want to do whatever, the town needs to look at this fiscally, they need a timeline also on when to proceed and how to get it done, and CPC money or town money or whatever. All this thing has to come together, orchestrated. And the only way to orchestrate it is to know from GZA what our timeline possibly is. So that's.
Okay, any questions, Charlie, or anyone else? No, seeing none. Thank you, Michael.
Yeah.
Thank you, Roxanne. Charlie, do you want to do your report and the water report that you had given us as a group?
Sure. Of course, the water's being tested on a regular basis, and in July, a pretty comprehensive testing set was accomplished. And it was, Dr. Cortman sent me a preliminary report on the testing in comparison with last year. If you recall, we started testing a lake like this last year. And so now we are beginning to accumulate some sort of a trend. Of course, just two years in a row is not really much of a trend, but it's the beginning of a trend. And so what I'd like to do is I'll just very quickly go over the different aspects of the analysis this time in comparison with last year, if that seems like a good idea to the committee. Would anybody like to have the report posted and shared to be visible? Would you like to see that? What do you think? Is that going to be useful?
I think it would be a
Yes.
good idea, yeah.
Okay, all right.
If
So,
you can do it, Charlie.
all right, let me do that. So I'm going to share that. Let's see if I get the right thing here.
I have one hard copy if you need it to look at it.
So, see if I can do this for you. I have to go to.
And Charlie, while you're doing that, I'll just let you know, I had my notes from yesterday's meeting now. So I have some of the specifics if you have any questions about
Good.
sampling that was done on Wednesday.
All right, so I'm going to share this now with you, and then we'll go over it according to how you want to do it. Tell me if you see it.
Not yet.
Not yet, Charlie.
Can you see it?
We
No.
don't, no.
All right, let's see. I don't know why I don't have it there. So do you have that on there? So I press this share thing down here, and it doesn't seem to be doing what I want. I have the file open, Steve.
No, but then you have to choose the one you want to share.
Oh, I got it. All right, so I have to choose the one. All right, let's see what we got here.
Usually.
All right, Roxanne, maybe you ought to do that since I've never done this before. Maybe you'll do it faster.
Oh, well, just in terms of
I don't,
the,
oh, wait, maybe I see the files there. No,
Yeah.
I don't see any files.
Greg Wellington?
Yeah. As the representative.
So Steve, when I go to share, I get a window that shows me whiteboard, Acrobat, system preferences, pages, calculator, under basic, and then I have advanced and I have files. And when I go, I don't see the file that I want.
Is it
Oh,
open?
did you open it somewhere on your desktop?
Yeah, it's open on my desktop right here. I'm looking at it.
Then when you open screen share, it should give you an option to where to find it.
All right, let me see that.
If you
I
see the
don't see,
window
I
where
don't
it's
see desktop as one of my options.
No,
into-
you should see the file.
go to files and then desktop,
I
Charlie.
see files and I don't see desktop.
Can you,
I
open?
see,
Is it a files folder?
it's the files open on my desktop. Okay, so
Can you see a window that shows that file? Choose that.
all right, well,
It'll say the name of the file.
I know, but I'm not finding any of that there. In other words, I'm not getting any kind of way to get into a directory that shows me that. All I see is, well, let me see now. Let me make sure this is on my desktop. Well, this,
Among the windows you're looking at should be one that has got what you have open. Choose that
Well,
window.
I cannot find a window that shows me where my desktop is. It's just not, I'm not finding it. I'm looking on my Mac. I just don't, usually I see that when I'm scrolling. It's very easy to find it, but I just don't see it. It's not there. So let's see if I can do some other one here. So is anybody else able to take this file and help me out with this, opening it up so I don't have to bore everybody with this?
Do you want to send it to chat? Can you upload it to chat?
All right, well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Rather than doing this, I'm going to explain it to you. And I think we can go through this pretty well without me actually sharing it with you. So let me see if I can do that. If anybody really needs it, I'll go forward with it. So the bottom line is that we compared the data from last July with the data this July. And last July, if you remember, when the sampling was done, the sampling found about 100,000 plus oscillatoria, which is it's a perpetual cyanobacteria in the lake. And it also found a rather large colony of microcystis, which is another potentially toxic cyanobacteria. This year, there are about twice as many cyanobacteria. The colony is located a little higher now at 7 meters. so that because of the cross-sectional distribution of the lake, this represents a much greater colony amount. The mass, the biomass is much greater than last year. But really, this oscillatoria has excluded all the cyanobacteria. So we only really have this year at this point in July, oscillatoria. Oscillatoria, as you know, of all of the cyanobacteria, was the one that we were slightly favoring. Not that we're happy about any of them, but that's because oscillatoria tends to come out in a bloom later in the year than the other ones do. That being the case, or that being said, because of the larger biomass of oscillatoria and the shallower depth, we are more vulnerable, according to Dr. Portman, to a bloom this year. And but that doesn't say when that's going to happen. Now, I think that Josh is coming up, I think the second week in September.
19th.
The 19th.
Okay, so, you know, that's, of course, one of the focuses that we have in terms of vulnerabilities of the lake and the nuisances and everything like that. So we have to be a bit on guard because of this. This does represent a slightly increased risk. Other things that promote a bloom besides the numbers of cyanobacteria, obviously, are what we call mixing. In other words, the water gets mixed around. Now, mixing comes because you get a lot of wind or a lot of storms, a lot of water flow into the lake, things like that. But the mixing is more likely to happen also when you have less defined stratification in the lake. Usually, if the ideal situation for the lake is to have a warm water level up above and a cold water level down below, with a big difference in the temperature of the water. That differentiates the epilimnion, the warm water, from the hypolimnion down below, and that's called the thermocline. We like to have a very abrupt difference. That prevents mixing. That helps us not to have mixing. Unfortunately, our thermocline is pretty spread out, so that the lake is more vulnerable to mixing compared to last year, when the thermocline was much more well-defined. So that this is, again, a negative in terms of this reporting. We are more likely to have this, but again, you know, the lake is a little bit colder, so that's okay. We're happy about that. The bottom line is that we need to be on guard, and we need to have more regular testing. And I know the town has already stepped up to start to do that. Isn't that, Roxanne? We've had another test done already. We don't have the results of that yet, but we've just tested it, and we're going to go forward after GZA analyzes this most recent test, again, that we've just done in response to Dr. Portman's recommendation, and we're going to proceed with additional testing after that. Isn't that correct, Roxanne?
Yeah, the way it was left is the data was directly sent. The data sheet that they fill out from the SOND was sent directly that day, which was Wednesday, to Chris Main of GZA. He was sharing it with Dr. Robert Cortman, and Cortman will be calling Mike Buffoni to let him know what his advice is. But typically, they're expecting they will go back out with the SOND in 1 to 2 weeks. So based on what Cortman says, he may want them to go out right away in 1 week. It maybe can wait for 2 weeks, but they will follow his advice. And the one thing is, let's see, the Secchi disc, so the clarity in June, for an example, May was 21 feet. So it was great. You know, it was wonderful in May. June, it was 19 feet. This last Wednesday, it was only 13 feet. So we've had, you know, some degree of turbidity and possible mixing. And right now, Mike noticed right away, apparently, that the stratification right now is about 7 meters. And usually this time of year, it would be 10 or 11 meters. So that's the concern. And it's really going to be dependent on what we experience in terms of weather and temperatures, whether we have any wind events, whether we get really high temperatures suddenly. So we really have to keep an eye on it. But they will be going out based on the advice of Dr. Cortman.
Yeah, so that's about the best we can do, except also being surveillant visually. You know, people out on the lake or around the lake should be paying attention. Yes, Michael.
Charlie, first of all, thank you for all of this and explaining it so well. I was out on the Harvester, and on the east side of the lake, there was sort of like, and I don't know, since I don't know, sort of like a mossy green things floating on the surface. Now, I don't know what that means or whatever. Near between White Pines and probably a third or halfway down the lake,
Which way?
or south towards the town beach. Yeah, on that, just in that area, I saw it, and I don't know what it means, or I don't even know what it was.
Mostly weeds.
There are similar,
No, it was.
Sounds like weeds.
No, it wasn't weeds.
What is it?
It's more a foamy green. It wasn't, I mean, it could be weeds, but it wasn't the normal, whatever, just to keep, just like you said, you want people to be vigilant. I just
No,
want.
that's very good. I'll take a look at that if you'll show me where that is. Now,
Yeah.
the other idea about this, just so everybody keeps in mind what we're dealing with. The lake has probably always had really, if you understand the way these cyanobacteria bloom, they don't just bloom on the entire surface of the lake instantaneously everywhere. And that if there can be a little bit of regional changes in the lake, so that you can get a very small surface migration, a bloom in an area that doesn't bother anybody particularly or isn't worth doing anything about. And it doesn't mean anything particularly because it just happens to be a shallow part of the lake. If you can, I'm sure you're familiar with the fact that the lake has a lot of different areas in it. Some are shallower than others. Some are maybe more isolated from others. A certain area might have more runoff, even more goose dropping, contributing to nutrients and things like that. So you get regional variations in this. And this complicates the whole pattern. But if the entire colony down below blooms, this huge colony, then we'll have a problem. There won't be any question at all about whether or not we've got a bloom or not. I mean, that'll be it. The oxygen concentration will go down even lower than it is now. We'll have all sorts of problems. But it's very, very natural for there to be very isolated regional tiny little blooms that don't mean anything particularly, if you can understand what I'm saying. They're not anything to be panicking about. It doesn't spread from that area, let's say, to everywhere else in the lake. That's not the way it propagates. What we're looking at is this large colony at 7 meters. That's usually where it would be, right at the thermocline, which is not as distinct as it usually is, as we said. We also notice right there that the dissolved oxygen drops. I mean, actually, the dissolved oxygen right at the level where the cyanobacteria is increases, and we can see that in the data too. But elsewhere, it's dropped down because there's probably more nutrients going into the lake this year because of all the runoff. But it's good to keep an eye on this, and I'll take a look at that if you want me to look at it. But just don't be overly concerned that if there's a little bloom of something in a tiny little place, it doesn't mean that we have to close the lake, and it doesn't mean it's going to spread through the whole lake. It doesn't work like that.
Charles?
Yeah.
At the northwest corner of the lake, where there's a beaver inlet near the Krippaloo
Beach.
the Krippaloo Beach, there is also a similar outgrowth of this fuzzy green stuff.
Well, thanks. Michael, is this, have you seen that when you're out there?
I haven't seen that per se, but I will take a look hopefully today if I can get out on the harvester. But I just saw it on the east side by White Pines going south. But as you say, it was really in the shallowest part of the lake. It seemed like it's like a mossy, greenish thing. But as you say, you should take a look and see if it's of any concern.
Maybe Gary, you could take me out and show me some of those spots.
Give me a call.
Okay, good. I just want you to understand also, the Board of Health has to issue advisories if, let's say, there's a bloom at the lake, or if it's a place where people are swimming and things like that. There is a certain let sleeping dogs lie approach that we have to take to this too. I hope you understand that understanding the nature of these things, having a tiny little, area with a little bit of these things in it is not necessarily a reason to close the whole lake. nor is it a reason to issue an advisory or a reason to worry that the entire lake is going to be overcome by a bloom. So please, anybody listening to this, don't be unduly concerned about that, because these things have happened probably every year for as far back as you know, we know. I mean, it used to happen in the 70s on a regular basis and thereafter that. So I'll take a look at these things and then I'll weigh in on it after that. So thank you very much, and we'll do that. Thanks, Gary. I'll give you a call.
Thank you, Charlie. Any questions for Charlie?
I have one point I'd like to make just before. I noticed you changed the agenda idea of having different committees report. Okay, you know, I'm wondering if we might have at least the option for committees, you know, like the Board of Health, Sewer and Water, things like that, to at least be having a kind of a roll call or something like that to weigh in to say that if they have something they'd like to report, you know, just so we don't miss that opportunity for members from, you know, because we do have a membership that's based on these committees, hopefully with input from the various committees, so we can, you know, be apprised of what's going on that the different members think is important in their own domains.
Okay, thank you, Charlie. Anything else?
I have one thing.
Sure.
The buoys will be taken out before the Josh, September 8th, 19th. Now, how's this going to affect you with the harvester?
I can't answer that. I don't know. I mean, we're going to go, I know where the areas are, where you're talking about the test areas, right? Is that the buoy for the test areas, not for the 6 mile an hour?
Because they get in the way for the Josh.
Yeah, okay. But basically, if you look at the map, you know the general area. So if you compensate even a little bit more for that area, we should be fine. Yeah.
Plus the GPS tracking, we should have ironed out all the problems before then, they'll have actual routes.
Thank you. Any other questions, Charlie?
Could I raise a couple of?
Did you get my point about the agenda including optional? Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Is there someone from the audience?
Could I raise a couple of issues?
Of course, go ahead.
The first is that there's been a yellow seaplane regularly coming in and out of the lake. As far as I can tell, it's using it for landing practice. And I don't know whether there's any way that the town can exercise control over that.
No.
But it's kind of annoying. It might pose a hazard, including bringing in zebra mussels. And the other thing, also on the zebra mussel front, a lot of homeowners who live by the lake and have kayaks by the lake take their kayaks elsewhere to enjoy their kayaks elsewhere, and that too presents a kind of zebra mussel concern. I don't know if there's anything we can do about it.
Peter?
Yeah.
First of all, good morning. When we started this, I mean, Gary is really the person should address this, so maybe well, basically, there's so many holes in this whole project. When we first started it, I remember everybody was saying there's no way we can keep this lake clean from or avoid zebra mussels. And to the credit of the people at the zebra mussel station and to the credit of the population at large, because I was for many years at the zebra station, people generally really want to see this lake healthy. So far, so good. But in terms of kayaks going elsewhere, there's almost, I can't see, or Gary, it's almost impossible to govern where people put it in, especially things that are so portable like kayaks. But you bring up a wonderful point about the boat, is that I don't know if we made it a rule that if you bring your boat in from outside or any launching into the boat, that you have to be inspected by the zebra mussel.
Optional.
Oh, it's optional? You don't have to be inspected?
Well, there's a wash station, no, and you're not.
No, the reason I say that is if you bring it up to the boat, to the plane and say, listen, if you want to come in here.
Oh, you're talking about the seaplane.
The seaplane, getting to the seaplane, I apologize.
Well, the seaplane is a whole other issue.
Using that as a.
Yeah, and I have.
Gary, do you have information?
I know the guy, I don't know him well, but he's been coming in here for a number of years. He's from South County where they do not have zebra mussels. And He just comes in to swim and take it easy, likes landing here. He doesn't go very far. It's a very light, very small plane. So I don't think we need to worry about him. And the other thing is, with kayaks or the floats on the planes, when those are washed by the air and they get, the floats on the plane pretty much get really a good washing by the air. That gets rid of all the microscopic veligers that might be clinging to it, as do kayaks that are on top of a car. So it's mostly larger boats that bring in water, like fishing wells and things like that in boats that we have to worry about.
Okay.
I think though, the key to the plane to me, and I know the person basically, is really the safety of not seeing someone in the water or not seeing swimmers or not seeing whatever. That's the only thing that concerns me the most when I see a plane coming in. It's hard. I'm in my boat and it's hard sometimes to see swimmers.
Right.
So that's the only reason
So
that
the legal aspect of this is that
Yeah.
unless the town takes action to pass a bylaw,
right.
there is no control over, there's nothing to keep that seaplane
FAA
from.
control.
That's what I
Yes,
was gonna say.
yeah. So we would have to pass a bylaw prohibiting it.
You don't want to do that.
And yeah,
I don't think we want to.
Peter, did you have another question or was
Never had
that
an
it?
incident.
No, I mean, I thought vaguely about having a resident dog at the Stockbridge Beach to take care of the goose problem, but that's not going to be practical.
What was that?
A dog, get a dog at the beach.
Oh,
When you get a dog,
Dog poop.
right.
All right, thank you, Charlie, for your report. And John, did you want to, you had a water and sewer
We
meeting?
had, yes, thank you. We had a meeting on the 10th of August, and we had Jim Willis from the Tri-Town, and we had Beth from the from the Lake Drive Association. So what we heard was the fact that about a third of the septic systems are over 20 years old that are on Lake Drive. And these appear to be failing in some cases. In the past, 12 of them have failed. Jim Willits was there to basically help in giving us some options as to how we could make sure that these failed systems do not pollute the lake. We discussed various things, and of course, the thrust of the discussion was, can sewer water accommodate these approximately 39 units, homes that are on the Lake Drive? From what I understand, the sewer can accommodate these people, considering the number of housing and the number of gallons that we each expect each house and bedroom to use. So I don't think that's a real concern. I think the concern comes down to cost, and of course it always comes down to cost. And there was some misunderstanding as to how to fund this, and I think Roxanne, you were going to mention, or you had mentioned that. Well, I don't know if you knew, but it was Beth's thought that, the $500 million that were going to be associated with this infrastructure in Boston was going to help out. But I think that it's 500,000, I'm sorry. There's some concern that, the 5-year plan that Sewer Water Commission works with did not include any expansion of the sewer in this particular direction. And I think that at the end, the discussion was, well, perhaps we ought to take this back to a town meeting and see whether we can raise that kind of money. Because it's quite obvious that, if we're interested in water quality, and I think Mike Buffoni was going to do some testing of phosphorus and nitrates, because that would be directly related to how much of the septics are contributing to the pollution. I think it would be important to go forward with an expansion of the sewer. Now, it's fair to say that, Jim Willis has said that there are other ways that we can associate better water quality. There are interesting septics that could be developed, perhaps groups of people that are on Lake Drive could join into a larger septic system. That's to be seen. I think that we should look at that possibility, but I think in the long run, it probably makes more sense to expand the sewer, which right now has the capacity to take on these housing, just have to find the money.
Yeah, I can tell you that yesterday in the select board meeting, Mark and Tony both gave reports. And the big concern here is priority in that we have some really old infrastructure in terms of sewer and water. And we're talking, over 100 years old in downtown. And we have some serious drainage issues, which we just experienced because of all this massive amounts of rain. A new pumping station is going in. However, there's still some drainage issues, and there certainly are sewer and water challenges downtown, Elm Street, Maple Street, et cetera, and that really need to be addressed. So it's, you're making sure you maintain what you already have before you start considering expansion, and the expansion is significantly more than $530,000 that we're getting. So that was part of their concern, is that we do have to make sure that we're maintaining our infrastructure. And obviously we've been working on the bridges and we're trying to keep up with that. And we're trying to have a regular scheduled maintenance plan moving forward. Once we play catch up with everything, we want to be we don't ever want anything to get this bad again. So we want to stay on top of it. So that's also a really big consideration here. And I agree with you. I think it would be lovely to do this, but it's got to go to town meeting because the appropriation is going to be significant.
John, I just have a question. The alternative of a community septic system, I think is what you were saying, like how does that work?
Well, I'm not sure, but Jim Willis was suggesting that that could be done. It would take some land that is available that's not developed, and create a larger septic field, and various homes could be associated with that septic field.
And that sort of ensures that they won't fail in individual homes is the key.
Exactly.
And it gets cleaned out naturally, or is it a electronic system? How do you know, or?
I don't know for sure. There are certainly different types of septic fields. Some have this, what they call the jet bat.
We have a jet, yeah, we have one of those, but I don't know at the size that you're talking about how that would work.
Right,
Yeah.
right. No, I don't know the specifics. I think you'd need an engineering report either way.
Apollo has a system like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Good example of it.
I think, can I add in there, John, thanks for bringing this up. I think that, I brought this up before. I agree with Roxanne, it should come before a town meeting eventually, but I think we need to this is a multi-committee analysis problem. We have the Board of Health has a very important interest in this, and obviously a lot of input from Tri-Town in terms of the different options available to the community there. Sewer and Water does, the Select Board does. And this particular committee itself is very concerned about the health of the lake and how this will play out in terms of if we had, let's say, a community septic system, does that allow for further expansion of additional homes in the area if that's going to take place? What are the things that are going to happen down the road? What's the best way? We see a lot of large houses going up around the lake now. How much will this be a good or bad thing for that kind of an idea? So I'm going to recommend, again, I'm going to talk to the board. I'm going to bring this up before the Board of Health because I think this is an important board issue. But I do recommend, again, that we put together a multi-committee group to look at this problem with the Lake Drive people and bring it before the Select Board eventually so that it can be discussed at a town meeting with this homework having been done. Because I think this kind of homework needs to be done before we can bring it into a discussion forum with all of the options being well understood.
Good point, Charlie.
Yeah, excellent point.
Any other questions from
One of the-
community?
I just want to say one thing about the Lake Drive. I live there. It's really it's the second largest association around the lake after Beechwood, with 38 homes, I think, Lake Drive has. And the issue is that we're concerned is that it's the oldest. I mean, it was the smallest homes. It was, it was sort of like the last frontier of the lake of being rebuilt. And some of these homes were just summer homes or just with old septic systems that are getting converted or failing or whatever. And we were just sort of bringing it up that we're concerned about the lake. The Lake Drive is concerned about the lake and failing septic systems. So that's one of the issues that we brought it up. And I think, as you say, I think it really is, there's 38 homes there. It's a community of quite a few people, but I think it has to be looked at, whether it goes forward immediately or 10 years from now or whenever. But I think a plan should be drawn up.
Well, I agree with you, Michael. And, for example, the Board of Health just considered a variance on a home that was asking to put a well in close to the property line because it was a small piece of property. And this is over in the Mackinac Heights area where there is a sewer in place. So this was an easier discussion from that point of view because we didn't have to worry about the septic system. But the reason for this well variance was really that the owners of the property wanted to convert from being part-time residents to being full-time residents.
Right.
And if, I don't know how many part-time residents there are in the Lake Drive area, but, this option, if just for example, putting additional wells in, or let's say, in order to get full-time year-round water as a conversion requirement for somebody moving from part-time to full-time, if that obtains in many of the homes on Lake Drive, this needs to be considered as part of the idea of upgrading the system. And if you had sewer and water, that would make it a lot easier to do that for the Board of Health to deal with that kind of an idea. But I'm not saying that's a requirement, but it certainly would make it easier. And this is one of those issues that needs to be considered by a multi-committed group that's going to look at this.
Exactly. Yeah. Any questions for John on his report? No, seeing none. Anything else anyone needs or wants to add?
It's Peter Strauss again.
Hi, Peter.
Hi, it's not clear to me, as the owner of a home that was required to put in one of these jet bat systems, and our neighbors as well, why, if there's a failing system on Lake Drive, they are not subject to the same requirement. The jet bat works entirely well. It's expensive, but it produces water that can be drunk, according to its manufacturers. I don't know why one needs to wait for a solution that takes care of all 39 homes. If there's a home with a failing septic system, it should be subject to such a requirement.
It is being done. That's what is happening. There's some areas that are so small that it's very difficult, but that's the way they're proceeding. Because we don't have a town sewer system. They have no choice. This is something preliminary, trying to get it so that it's healthier for the lake, because even though you have a septic system, from what I understand, other things still go in the lake, nutrients or whatever it is, keep going into the lake. Even if you have a jet, whatever it's called, or any of septic systems, it's still an issue for the lake. It's not as bad as if, you had a terrible septic system, but they are doing that. That's what people are doing with their homes. They're putting in these things.
Pass phosphorus.
Yeah. It's healthier to have a town sewer system than it is any other system.
I hope that answers your question, Peter.
Oh, well, it does. The sewer system is not going to be extended across the causeway. We're aware of that.
Well, the sewer system goes all the way down on the east side of the lake. It was built
Well,
to the causeway, right?
well, there's
Yeah.
3 houses on Lake Drive that are actually on the sewer.
Yeah, but that's because it went by, not at the causeway, but at the end of the outlet.
Road, right.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway,
Any other questions for John and his report? Seeing none, any motion to adjourn?
yeah. Thank you.
I'll second.
And all in favor?
All in favor, yes? Yeah.
Next meeting is September 3rd at 8 a.m. Have a lovely August, and
Thank
thank
you.
you all for coming.
You too, take care.
Thank you, John.